The will was written in my favor. That's the title I chose for today. And as we go along, you'll see how that unveils. But it's Easter time. The scripture, I am the resurrection and the life. And that is true for us. I got an Easter message on my text. Just, was it yesterday or the day before? And the sender told me that she didn't necessarily call it Easter, she called it Resurrection Day. I like that a lot. And I'm going to share what she wrote to me. I hope she doesn't mind, because she went on to really develop truth in a new way. Here's what, and by the way, this is one of our members, Gaia, who is not able to be here today, but here's what Gaia says about Easter. I believe that the one and the same power or energy that brought Jesus out of the finality of death is available to each of us to rise again. All we need to do is overcome any firmly held belief that something is impossible. So this is a great season for reviving old notions of what's possible with faith, believing it is done already. Amen. I like that message. I wish I'd get more text messages like that. Anyway, today, the will was written in my favor. I picked a key spiritual truth, as I usually do. And it follows right along with the daily word and all we're going to say today. I am the resurrection and the life. Life abundant is mine to claim. I am the resurrection and the life. Life abundant is mine to claim. You know, the truth of Jesus' resurrection, the truth for us is not, maybe not so much in the physical story, because there's some debate about exactly how that may have come down to us, but in the truth underlying it. That's what we talk about when we talk about metaphysical understanding. Go beyond the physical. Go to the underlying truth that's there for all of us, one that resonates with our core of our being. Resurrection itself is not new to Christianity. Bodily resurrection is celebrated by the Jewish community, the Muslim community, and the Christian community as well. And also, there are many of the Eastern religions that had a practice that said that this life is not all there is. This physical life here and now is not all there is. There's a resurrection waiting to occur for all of us into new life and a new purpose. And that's what we'll talk about today. We're going to talk about the legacy that we have, the will itself, and of course the inheritance. Those are the processes. And you've probably been through a will of some sort, or at least you've observed somebody else going through that will and the reading of the will, and you know about the legacy, you know about the will itself, that legal document, and you know about the inheritance. Hopefully you were part of the ones who inherited. So, first, the legacy. Now, the legacy from a spiritual perspective that we have relates to a couple words that can be pretty mystifying. So I'm going to try to break it down and make it really easy. The first of those words is substance. We know that the substance, that intelligent, creative, thinking stuff, is the beginning of all that appears in form. That's substance, but I've put it together in just a very few words. I'm calling it unlimited, intelligent, and creative stuff. So around us, what is the genesis for everything is intelligence, it's creative, and it's there, available to us. That's part of the legacy. We'll get to how we access that legacy. So substance. And then the other thing is source. And we talk about source maybe a little more easily because some of us use source as the word that we would use instead of using the word God. But I'm going to try to put that in very few words. I'm going to call that the divine distribution authority. So here we have all of this substance, that's intelligent stuff from which everything is formed, and source is the divine distribution authority. You got that? I want you to remember this, because source and substance are a little tricky. You got them? I want to see some heads nodding. Okay, I got it. Source and substance. Now, experiencing that source and substance is probably something that you've experienced. I know I have, but I didn't know I was experiencing it at the time. Just want to share a couple of examples from my life. In my life, there's been times when I was kind of literally at the end of my rope in terms of sustenance. There didn't seem to be any substance there from which I could form something. And I wasn't sure about the source of where it was going to come from. Told you one of the stories, I think, before, if you've been here, about how these seem to happen all over the world. One of them happened in Colombo, Sri Lanka. When I arrived there, thought I was staying briefly, found out I had to stay longer, and had only a very little bit to secure a bed for the night. And you know, it was marvelous the way that was provided for. Won't go on to tell you all of the story, but it happened by a chance meeting on the street. I remember also a time when I was going to Guatemala. This is back in my college days. I got delayed at the border for a couple of days, and finally got down through Mexico to Guatemala, and just a few kilometers short of, and I was going with a friend, short of our arrival, we had only enough money for a little chuchito, a little piece of cornmeal with a little bit of meat inside of it. But we had enough. The substance was there. It appeared by a street vendor. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was experiencing substance and source. One more that I have. When I was even yet a little younger than that, in college, I had an opportunity to go to the British Isles on a tour. I went by boat. It was a wonderful little cruise, and came back by boat. And coming back, we arrived in Montreal. It was the time of the Expo in Montreal. Anybody old enough to know about that Expo in Montreal? I see some hands here. And of course, had to take that Montreal Expo, and did. And then go back to home, which was in New York State, not terribly far. Somehow, I made it to Niagara Falls and the Peace Bridge. Everybody, who's walked that Peace Bridge at Niagara Falls? I don't see any hands. Come on, you got to go to Niagara Falls. Floyd, thank you. That Peace Bridge. On that Peace Bridge, I had simply a nickel in my pocket. Nothing more. But all that I needed had been provided and brought me to this place, source and substance at work for me. The same is true for each of us, that intelligent, creative stuff is there waiting for us to knock on the door of the agent that is source, the agent that's going to distribute that and allow it to come into our lives. All that we need, but more than that, even all that our hearts desire. We just haven't learned all the time yet to appropriate that. And we're going to try to put some ideas out about how to do that. That's the legacy. Amazing, unlimited, the legacy. And then we get to the will. Well, you know about wills. They're a legal document. Every last little detail is put down. Well, the will is written in our favor. It's written according to something that we might call a legal framework. These are the universal laws that are there. Now, universal laws can be tricky because if you're looking at different authors, you might find 50 of them that are universal laws. But you might find some that really resonate with the truth of you as well. I'm going to suggest just a few of those. The ones that I thought of particularly was the law of supply, the idea that supply is always available, that substance that we were talking about, the law of attraction. You've heard of the law of attraction. We also call it in Unity the law of mind action. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. The law of giving and receiving. We talk about it every Sunday. Freely we give, and freely we receive. That cycle of giving and receiving. The law of increase. The idea that everything is constantly expanding is the very nature of all that is to increase. We don't take advantage of that law as much as we might. And finally, the law of intention and desire. For a while, we had a group here called the Intenders Group. Marianne got us started on that. And that Intenders Group was the idea of holding in mind what we really had a desire for, and holding it and holding it and holding it and affirming in each other that desire, because it's there in the legacy, that desire would be ours. And the will was written in those ways in line with those particular laws. But the necessary thing for us to do is to work with the law, not against it. To be actively working with the law. There's a wonderful book by a New Thought author, Raymond Hollowell, Working with the Law, and he cites several laws and gives a lot of practical ideas with regard to working with that law. It's the idea of our individual will, and of course we have a will, working with divine will, working with it, not in contrary fashion. Now, in a legal document of a will, there are often stipulations. This has to happen before the money is given, something of that nature. Well, us working with the law is the stipulation, working with those universal laws that resonate with the core of our being. Those stipulations are work with it. And so when we do, we are able to be the beneficiary of that will, because until we meet those stipulations, it doesn't happen. I watched a movie Donna and I did a time back called The Ultimate Gift. The Ultimate Gift was the story of, was it Ray or Roy? Red Stevens. Red Stevens, a billionaire who was about to die, and so he put down in a video what his will would be. He had his grandson, Jason, who wasn't really on very good terms with his grandfather, and he'd expected nothing from that will. But Red Stevens wrote that will so that Jason, the one he chose, would be the heir of all of that fortune. However, in 1 year there were 12 things, 12 assignments that he had to accomplish, all attached to a gift before that legacy, before that inheritance was imparted to him. Wonderful movie, if you have a chance to see it, The Ultimate Gift. And there's, I think, another one, The Ultimate Legacy. There's a couple of them that go along with that. So the problem is sometimes, most of the time maybe, that we don't work with that law. We don't meet the stipulations that are there. The stipulations are simple. They're not hard. They're not backbreaking. But we just don't do it. I remember Shakespeare from Hamlet saying something, hey, wisdom of Shakespeare. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, not in some God out there or billionaire who's going to bequeath us something, but in ourselves. that we are underlings. We don't measure up to the stipulations of the will when this magnificent inheritance is available to us. And then there's the inheritance. We had the legacy, the will, and the inheritance. You know, the thing about an inheritance is it has to be claimed. I may have the most crazy, amazing, unlimited inheritance in the world, but if I don't claim it, it doesn't do me any good. So claiming the inheritance is important. And of course, that goes along with those stipulations, complying with the inheritance. But it's there. That substance is there. That dispensing authority is just ready to give it if we will just work with it. We can tap into that legacy. Now, when we're talking about the legacy from a spiritual point of view, it's unlimited. Absolutely unlimited. And it doesn't just happen for one person. It's not just you, Phyllis, or you, Scott, or you, Terry, that gets the inheritance. All of us do. Because that supply, that substance is unlimited, we can give an unlimited inheritance to everybody. And that's what the divine has in mind for us. That legacy can be tapped into by each and every one of us. Instead of there being a heaven down the road at a future time, you know what? The heaven is now. We have the capability of tapping into that inheritance. We claim it because that huge, unlimited legacy is ours. We have been designated in the will as the one to receive that, each and every one of us. So now we get down to that point, how do I do that? There are a number of things we could do, a number of directions we could go to do that, but I'm going to suggest just one simple thing. And Marianne, would you give out those handouts that I've got? And Tom, if you can put up the slide about, this is how do I do that? And thank you, Jenna, for helping too. So the key on how do I do is work with the law. Work with the legal requirement. Claim the inheritance. Meet its requirements. So I put on this handout and on the screen 5 of these laws that we're talking about. And how do you do that? I want you to take one of these laws, one that really connects with you. You may not connect with all of them at this point in time, but you probably connect with one of them more strongly. Which one calls to you? Which one of these, and I've given them a little bit of definition too. The law of supply. Divine supply is available to meet every need and heart's desire. The law of intention and desire. When we faithfully intend the fulfillment of our heart's desire, it comes to us. Law of attraction. Law of mind action. Thoughts held in mind produced after their kind. The law of giving and receiving. There is a cycle of giving and receiving. Freely we give, and freely we receive. And the law of increase. It is the nature of all things to increase. Which one of these calls to you? Okay, if you're going to work with the law, if you're going to access that inheritance, work with the law, you'll take that one that's calling to you, and this week you'll work with it. Oh, don't worry about the ideas. They'll be there. As you open yourself to Spirit, how to do that will come, and it'll be different for each one of you. So I'm not trying to give you do this, you do that. But I am giving you a little bit of an assignment. Work with the law. Because in working with the law, we experience life, abundant life, just like we're talking about today. We're going to come from that place of torpor when we're not seeming very lively. And we're going to burst into life like the Easter story shows us. So I say, last week we told you to use this affirmation, I am life. Today I'm going to expand that and say, I am the resurrection and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. All that's there for me, I'm going to awaken from a deadliness, and I'm going to find that. I'm going to be aware of that. I'm going to work with that. I'm going to bring it to myself because it's there for me. Again, back to Gaia's thing. Resurrection Day. Every day can be Resurrection Day, not only Easter. So I challenge you to see the legacy, to know the will, to know those universal laws that help us to access that, and to claim the inheritance, perhaps in the ways we've suggested today. So let me give you that key spiritual truth. I am the resurrection and the life. Life abundant is mine to claim, and so it is.